Good? Okay. Morning, everybody. My name is Derek Belch. I'm the founder and CEO of Striver Labs. First and foremost, I apologize for my attire and for my hat. I'm not trying to make a power play statement with how I dress in front of people. I literally just came from the hospital. My wife had a baby at 5 a.m. this morning, so thank you. First one and the hospital band to prove it. So I did not want to flake on this. I appreciate you guys having us here. So I'm about to talk about, follow up a lot of the things that Steve just mentioned towards the end, and talk about what we, I don't want to say this arrogantly, but to be honest, what we're doing right now is the first true, really good use case for virtual reality. And all of the questions that were just brought up are things that we wrestle with every day because we are using virtual reality to train athletes. There are no slides. You're just going to look at me while we talk until we actually show you what we're doing. So I'm going to give you guys a really quick background on what we are doing. And like I said, all right, I'm sorry, I didn't say it yet. So I was a graduate assistant coach at Stanford for the last 2 years. That means that I was in grad school while also coaching for the football team. And this idea of using VR to train athletes is not necessarily new or revolutionary. However, there have been only a few people that have been thinking about it for a long enough time to actually monitor the industry to see where it's going and to be ready to go once the technology is available. And back in 2005, when I was an undergrad at Stanford, many of you know Jeremy Bailenson in the field, who's a professor at Stanford, and I had one of his classes called Virtual People, and I asked him at the time, is this something that we could use to train athletes, because I was on the football team. And his response was yes, but hold that thought, because we're nowhere near ready, but I think we will be in about 10 years. Flash forward, I'm in business school at USC. I get this crazy idea, now taking my third degree to go be a football coach, and I call Jeremy, and once he tells me that I get into the master's program a few months later, he says, oh, by the way, the technology's ready. And if you want to do your master's project on using VR to train athletes, I think it'll be good to go, and I think we could do something pretty neat. So that's exactly what I did. I took the whole first year while I was at Stanford to just be a football coach. I had every intention of being a coach, but I had this little birdie in the back of my mind the whole time saying, you really should pay attention to this VR thing. It could be pretty cool. But I knew that A, to be a good coach, I would have to actually learn how to coach, and B, I knew that to make the product really, really good for football, that I had to learn how it could be applied, not only for the players, but for the coaches. And that's exactly what we did. So we didn't start filming anything until my second year on the staff. It was about 16 months ago, April of 2014, and we filmed a test play at the very end of spring practice. I'll kind of educate some of you in the room that don't know about football as we go here, how kind of the schedules work, but this was the last practice that Stanford had before going into summer camp. So there were 3 months off after this practice. So if we didn't like what we got, we were dead for 3 months, and there was nowhere else that we could go. It's kind of like testing the jump cam. They could just turn that thing on, tomorrow and try it again. We couldn't do that because the players would not be on the field. So we filmed it, we really liked what we had, and that's kind of how the idea germinated, and then we used it all throughout the season last year, and I'll talk about that in a second. Now, before I get there, the biggest thing that we tell coaches when we walk in the room to tell them why we are doing what we're doing is very, very simple. What you're about to see is not a video game. So we use real video. We use the principles of the Google Jump Cam, except the Google Jump Cam is very, very big, and it can't go on a football field next to a player. So we use a scaled-down version of that. I'm sure some of you guys have seen the spherical rigs out there. But we were doing this 16 months ago when nobody knew what this stuff was, and here we are today, and it's going to be a commodity in about a year. So I'm going to talk about in a bit how we're going to stay ahead of the game. But the reason why we did that is because Jeremy Bailenson's message to me when we were talking about how should we actually pull this off and make this project work was if we use a video game, a 3D rendering, to try to train athletes, it's not going to work, at least today. The graphics are nowhere near good enough. Madden is not ready to go into an Oculus Rift, which was the DK1 at the time. And even if it is, the human gait, and a lot of you scientists in the room probably know this, the human gait is so important as it pertains to learning, especially skill building, especially if I'm a quarterback trying to make a decision with a guy moving 100 miles an hour and another guy moving 100 miles an hour, not literally, but figuratively. But you guys are going to see how fast this stuff moves in a second. If I'm trying to make a decision on the field and it's a video game and it doesn't time up how it does in the real world, it's not going to work. As a matter of fact, we could teach that quarterback to make decisions off of false cues, because now he's trying to read a guy running a post against a safety going there and a linebacker going there, and if it doesn't time up correctly, he could be training himself to make decisions off of the wrong thing. So that's why we did what we did. Flash forward, we actually kind of come up with a cool test case for this. We're in like week 8 of the season. We were filming plays every day, or excuse me, every Monday during the season. We have a nice little library built up. Our quarterback finally uses the thing the night before the UCLA game, and he goes out the next day and literally has the best game of his career. Now, not saying that we were the reason, because he only used it for about 15 minutes, okay? But when I was sitting down with him the next day and talking to him about, hey, what'd you see in the game relative to what you saw in VR? And he recalled 4 specific instances. Hey, on this play, they did exactly what we practiced on the field and what I saw the night before. On this play, I'm just going to throw some terminology at you. Don't worry if it goes over your head. On this play, the defense was in nickel. We practiced it out of base, but it was close enough, so I knew what I was looking at. On this play, it was base. We practiced it out of nickel. So these types of things kept coming up, and I stopped him right there. I'm like, you understand that this means that it's working, right? Because you're literally on the field, and your brain is saying, I've seen this before. Not only have I seen this before, I didn't see it 3 days ago in practice. I saw it last night. And that's a really, really big deal. So the next week, he uses it again, plays a hell of a game. Uses it for the whole month leading up to the bowl game, plays a hell of a bowl game. By now, Coach Shaw sits me down in December and says, if I were you, I would stop coaching. And here's $30,000 to get your company off the ground if you want to try to do this. So that's exactly what we did. And on January 2nd, we opened for business. I said goodbye to coaching, hung the clipboard up, did stay on the staff for part-time for a couple months, which was very critical because it allowed us to test some things at the next spring ball that was 2 months away, and that allowed us to make our product ready to go for the NFL, for college football, et cetera. And I'll get to where we are as far as the landscape is concerned with those sports in a minute. Now, before Andrew shows you this, I do want to touch on one other thing. What do I have here? Okay, so a lot of people ask me, what was the aha moment that you have had throughout this journey? And we're only 9 months old, and we have 13 teams right now, and we have done quite well in the revenue department because what we're doing is not cheap. So this is a very nice success story today. We have a long way to go as far as a startup is concerned. But for me, kind of the aha moment was I went to the NFL Combine in February, where we met with 11 NFL teams, from head coaches to GMs to water boys, guys that were just kind of random people that were there having fun. And the feedback was really, really good. And the first play you're going to see is all we had at the Combine. We had one camera angle to show everybody. And the feedback was, this is awesome, but we need more. So we went back to Stanford. Like I said, I was still on the staff, and we got more. And that's what you're going to see it for the second play, and then we're not going to show you everything, and we'd be here all day. But now we can do this for almost every position on the field. So after spring ball ended, or in the middle of the 2 sessions that Stanford does, I went on the road, and I went to Auburn, Arkansas, Clemson, Vanderbilt, and Dartmouth. I went to those 5 schools in a 7-day period. Just got on a plane, got a rental car, hopped from place to place, and 4 teams out of the 5 that we met with bought it on the spot. And that was the aha moment. I mean, let's be honest. This is a beta product that is like not even proven. And I'm sitting there telling these guys, yeah, we can turn the film around in 24 hours. The software's going to do this. It's going to do this. Meanwhile, we are nowhere near ready for that. So, pat on the back. Nice job with sales. We get 4 teams, 4 out of the 5, and then a 5th jumped on a week later. Then I get a call 2 weeks later from the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, Jason Garrett, and he tells me, hey, all I need is 12 hours of notice. I've heard what you guys are doing. I've been dreaming about something like this for 20 years, so just give me 12 hours and you can come and you can present to the whole staff. So that's exactly what happened. A month later, it was a Sunday night. I called Jason, say, hey, we can be there tomorrow. We're going out to one of our schools. Can you meet with us? He said, done, 10 a.m., be here. So we went out there. He bought it on the spot. So now you got 5 colleges, and the biggest brand name in professional sports next to the Yankees, who are your first clients. This isn't high school. This isn't Division II. Okay, this is the big time right out of the gate. That was kind of the aha moment. That was pretty cool. So from there, the pressure was on to actually deliver. And I'm going to kind of talk about what we're doing to deliver right now. But before we do, this is, by the way, because I do have to go back to the hospital, I will not be at the lunch. This is Andrew Wasserman. He's our head of product, and he's a Stanford Business School grad, also played football himself in college. So he will be at the lunch, and please talk to him about anything you want afterwards. So go ahead and put that thing on. Now, The first thing I want to note is we're just running the sound off the laptop, okay? So you guys, I didn't want the computer to mess up, so if you guys can hear it in the corner, go ahead. But this is kind of our interface that we've made. Not kind of, it is our interface that we've made. Okay, so we put the play name up on the screen. We put any notes that we want the player to see. Go ahead and let it run, Andrew. Okay, Andrew has an Apple TV remote. Now, pause it really quick. Okay, as far as an experience is concerned, sound is so critical. Not from an immersive standpoint necessarily, because it is important for that from a VR standpoint, but I don't know how much any of you guys know this, but when football players watch film, and that's all they do to prepare, okay, by week 4 in the NFL, they're literally jogging on the field because they're so beat up to save themselves every week. They watch so much film, they can't hear a thing. And it's only from the sideline, like that picture that was up there that you guys watch on Sundays with the yellow line, it's sideline or it's end zone, 100 feet in the air, right behind everybody. It is not what the player actually sees on the field, and they can't hear anything. So the fact that they can hear what's going on the field, because the cameras just pick up the ambient sound, is a really big deal. Andrew, hit play. Furthermore, the fact that he's now seeing the field from his point of view, not from the end zone, not from the sideline, is a really big deal. So if I'm a backup quarterback and I don't get very many reps during the week, because during a game week, a backup quarterback, you can count on one hand how many plays he gets to run. And he has to be prepared to go into the game. And if you guys watched last weekend, 5 backup quarterbacks went in the NFL in 1 week. Okay? And those guys are all expected to be ready to play with about 3% of the reps that happen over the course of the week. So if I'm a backup, I can go in here and get this rep over and over and over. So that's what we took to the combine. The feedback was, this is really cool, but we need more. So go ahead, Andrew. Let's show them what we did. Okay, pass game. This is called 7-on-7. Okay, don't hit play yet. Teams do this every single day. Okay, this is no lineman involved. This is just pass game. This is just for the quarterback. This is just for the receivers. This is just for the defense. Okay, Andrew's demonstrating that this is a sphere, so it's not quite Google Jump because it is a full sphere. It's not as clear as Google Jump is because it's not the full algorithmic stereo, but that's okay given the turnaround time that we have to deal with. Go ahead and hit play. This is live. This is full speed. So Andrew's going to show you how fast a quarterback has to make a decision on a football field, for those of you who don't know. Okay, it happens in about 1.4 seconds. And if you don't see it, you're dead. You're on your butt. You might have a broken collarbone like Tony Romo did this weekend, which was awesome for us to watch since they're one of our teams. Actually, it was awesome, and we'll get to that in a second. So, pause it, Andrew. Another thing that you can do with this, pause it, is we're calling this third-person viewing. Okay, so today, there is no way to watch yourself unless it's in the first person, I'm just looking at my arms and legs right now, or it's two-dimensional. I'm watching myself during the game or during practice on a screen. With this, because as you guys know that have seen one of these things and put it on, you feel present on the field. Now you're watching yourself in the third person, which honestly is really, really uncomfortable for people. It's like hearing your own voice when you talk. It's really, really jarring. So the Drew Breeses of the world, the Tony Romos of the world, the quarterbacks that have been, the Carson Palmers, if you guys know who that is, the guys that have been doing this in the NFL for 15 years, they don't need this rep against the defense. They love watching themselves because they're narcissists. They only got to where they were because they're obsessed with performing. So when they look at themselves and watch their feet and watch their shoulder and watch their eyes and watch themselves perform, it's a totally different experience. And in Jeremy's lab over the last 10 years at Stanford, they've studied a ton of different things, one of them being what is the effect of third-person viewing on performance. And as it relates to skill building and getting better at something, third-person viewing is very powerful. They did one study that related to Tai Chi and karate where it was like 25% more effective than watching yourself in 2 dimensions or actually kind of acting out the motions yourself. So, Jeremy's done a ton of great research. A lot of it's available online. I would encourage you guys to go check it out. But that's just another use case for what we're seeing, which is very important because I'm not going to bore you guys with some of the struggles we're going through as a startup, but we have a lot of teams that are really bought into capturing content every day, and now we're figuring out how the players are going to use it. So the fact that the players can not only kind of get the rep against the defense, but also watch themselves is a really big deal, and it's a really cool use case for us, and we like to see multiple ways of this stuff being used. And it's not only being used for the quarterback, like I said, offense, defense, special teams, linemen, kind of based on the timing of where we were as far as getting to each team. Each library for the team is a little bit different just based on when we actually showed up. Okay, so that's that. Now, I wanted to kind of transition into something as we start to wrap up here, kind of touching on some of the things that Steve said in the beginning. And if I had slides today, and I spoke at South by Southwest months ago, I would have used the exact same slides as those, but he pretty much said everything I was going to say as far as introducing VR, what it is, what the challenges are, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the really cool things that we love about what we're doing, we're in a really, really sexy industry. Sports, everybody loves it. Everybody loves the NFL. You guys probably are aware that sports is a multi-billion-dollar industry, from a 4-year-old getting lessons all the way up to a 39-year-old quarterback watching himself in virtual reality. So there's a lot of money in sports. Now, the really cool thing about what Striver is doing is I played football and coached football. Played football. Trent Edwards, one of the co-founders, was a quarterback at Stanford, for those of you who live in the area and recognize that name. Another guy on our staff who's our CSO, played football and played in the NFL for 7 years. We are composed entirely of people that played the game or coached the game or both. That is not saying if you want to work for us that you have to have done that, okay? However, it is very, very important, okay? And no disrespect to anybody in this room, because you guys are all incredibly brilliant, but if any of you came up with the most brilliant football training device known to man, I guarantee you would get laughed out of a room when you went into pitch it in front of 30 football coaches. That's because if you can't speak their language, you're done. They're like dogs. They smell your fear, and if they have any little hint of it, you're in trouble. So we have been able to break that barrier of being football people that are taking the tech and the sports and combining it and communicating it to these guys. Hey, here's what it is. Here's why it works. Here's how you can use it. And oh, by the way, here's why you should buy it. And to date, we've been pretty successful. Now, the thing that we really monitor is the use cases for VR. So to Steve's point from the beginning, what is VR actually going to become? I will be the first person in this room to be very honest. I am not a VR evangelist. Okay, I don't even like technology that much. I don't even know how to tweet. I don't have a Facebook account. Okay, but I believe in what we're doing because we have identified a problem. There is never enough time for reps on a football field, and guys get hurt, and they can't always get their physical work in, which gives them their mental work because it's the view that they have from the field. So that's the problem. The solution is to give them the work without having to be on the field. Whereas there's a lot of other things in VR right now, VR, AR, et cetera, where people are coming up with solutions and then they're looking for problems. And I'm not saying that arrogantly, like we're the only company known to man that's going to succeed in VR, because we're not. But the truth is that there's a ton of money going into VR in cinematic VR. Let's be honest, pornography. That may be the only other one that succeeds, by the way. But there's just a lot of money going into movie making. Some of this, like I'm in China, you're in San Diego, and we're going to be in a room together in VR. It all sounds really cool, but we don't know how people are going to use it. We don't know if anyone's going to want to watch a game from courtside with a headset on for 3 hours. We just don't know that. And as a matter of fact, Jeremy Bailenson told the commissioner of the NBA and the NFL at his lab that that's not your play. Don't waste your money doing that because people aren't going to want to do it. You need to package things up. It needs to be a 2-minute highlight, a 3-minute experience, kind of like the demo I saw with Google Jump. It has to be quick hitting. Okay, now I'm not saying it's not going to work, but my point is that one of the things we love about what we're doing is that we do actually have a really, really good use case for virtual reality. And then the last thing that I wanted to touch on was kind of where we are today and where we're going as far as Striver is concerned. I mentioned the thing about having athletes involved, knowing sports. That's a really, really big deal. As far as where we're going, if you are someone in the room that knows that can do light fields today, please talk to me afterwards, because light fields is where we have to go to make this a really, really awesome experience. Talk to Andrew, because we're monitoring the technology so closely. We know what's out there in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. We also know what's nowhere near ready to be put on an athlete's head. For example, in baseball, we're talking to multiple baseball teams. We have a basketball team. We have a hockey team at the professional level. And we know that the headsets right now are not ready for any sport other than football because the clarity is just not good enough. You can't take a real video of a baseball player facing a pitcher and have it be good enough for a trained hitter's eye, a very, very sensitive eye, for him to say, yeah, that's a legit experience. This is legit because you're worried about 22 blobs moving around the field and just kind of where do they go. It's not about focusing on a little ball. So what we're doing is we're monitoring the space to say, okay, where can we be in a year where can we be in 2, 3, 4 years? How do we capture content today, and how do we need to change that in the future to make this product even better? And to date, we have 6 teams in the NFL, 7 in college football. We do have a basketball and a hockey team in the NBA and the NHL, respectively, because we've kind of convinced them that they need to get ahead of the game for when this stuff is ready to go for their sports. The movement thing, like Steve said, very big issue. Basketball, hockey, those sports move a lot. They are very, very fluid. Someone will get sick if we move that camera even the slightest bit, or if they're running down the court and the camera's not moving at the same speed as they're moving, they're going to get sick, and we can't have athletes getting sick right before they watch us or they play a game when they prepare. So we have 13 teams today. We're pretty confident that we think we can get them all next year, just based on kind of the timing of where we missed out this year and not getting to people in time, and we'll kind of see where it goes. So with that said, we'll go to the questions. Thank you.